Joining me now to shed some light on the new CrunchFund venture is Michael's co-founder, Pat Gallagher. Pat, you guys are also very good friends, so great to have you here on the program. Let's start with the fund strategy. You know, we've been talking about Groupon earlier. Some of these companies that were so, exciting are not having necessarily the exits that investors were expecting. What is your strategy going into this, big bad world where there are more startups out there than ever before? There
are. It's an exciting time. Well, I think we've set the fund up to really focus on seed and early stage investments and partnering with entrepreneurs. We've assembled a set of LPs, as you mentioned, the Sequoias, the Kleiners, but also angel investors like Ron Conway and Yuri Milner is also moving down into the angel side of things. And what we're trying to do is provide leverage for these young startups to have access to capital, to business development relationships, to potential customer relationships. Mike and I have a broad set of networks. Mike's lived within sort of the ecosystem of young startups for a very long time. And I think that the CrunchFund is really trying to bring together all the resources that a young company needs, because we're all about the entrepreneurs. We're about helping these guys because we know how hard it is to get a business off the ground.
So what is it that you bring to the table, and what is it that Mike brings to the table, things that maybe he learned through his experience at TechCrunch?
Well, I mean, Mike had companies launched in his house and then watched those companies go raise their first venture rounds, and now many of them are successful public companies even. I've been involved with technology companies since 1996. I started at Morgan Stanley. I've been a venture capitalist since 1997. I maybe come from the more process-oriented side of investing, right? I've been in the venture world. I've been doing this for a living. Mike has been both running his own company and living as an entrepreneur and covering a lot of these companies. And I think that we see an amazing opportunity to really help these young companies when they struggle. We also know when to step back and let the entrepreneurs shine and push their product vision through.
Let me ask about that. So I've got to think that Mike's ability to sit, I call him Mike as if I know him, I never met him, sit in the catbird seat with TechCrunch and really see these companies really helped him gain a real understanding of what businesses are like.
Sure. Yeah, I think that his perspective is very different than mine. I've been on public boards and private boards companies, and I've seen companies kind of grow from very young to very large companies. He sat there and watched this ecosystem of a lot of Web 2.0 companies just develop around him. He would have the founders in his living room, and then they'd go raise money, and as I said, go on and become much bigger companies.
So what happens now that he's not in that position where they're coming to his living room because he's got TechCrunch? I mean, that would see the conflict was also an opportunity for him, right? Everyone had to walk through his door, through his living room door. Without that, is Mike's ability to source deals changed?
Absolutely not. I mean, Mike has built an ecosystem and a set of relationships that extend on. I think you'll see through all of this, we've had terrific support from our LPs, from the investment community, from a lot of the prominent tech executives, and that will continue on. So I don't think that there is any question of Mike's ability to continue to have a strong, influential role in this ecosystem.
I mean, in talking about your backers, I mean, it's like a who's who of the best venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, and congratulations to both of you on that. But do you think there was any kind of, pressure or concern that if they didn't, join this fund or sign up, that there was the fear of missing out rather than, an expectation that you guys are going to lock down these amazing deals?
I mean, there's no pressure at all. I mean, we went to all of these folks. We went to a broader set than the folks that have come in, and we've said, we have relationships with you guys. Whether or not you invest in our fund, we're going to continue to have relationships. These companies, not every venture or angel fund or investor is the right fit for the company. So we have a broad network and set of relationships. There were plenty of folks that didn't invest. And I think that from our standpoint, we are, again, coming back to, we're trying to create something that is a little bit more entrepreneur friendly, that really helps them get access to our broader networks in a much more, a much quicker way.
Do you feel like at a certain point, I mean, he talked at the TechCrunch conference about how he basically just wanted to get rich. Like he made some money, but he watched all these venture capitalists and he knew taking in the big bucks, and he wasn't. Having made a jump, having once gone from being a journalist to an investor, I wonder if that's what's motivating him, that he really wants to get a part of that big piece of the pie.
No, I mean, Mike is inspired by these startup companies. You should, if you see how Mike lives today versus how he lived 20 years ago when I knew him, he lives exactly the same way. It's not about the money for Mike. It's about It's about finding that next product that changes your life.
I do want to read one quote from his new blog,
Sure.
Uncrunched. He says, you know, in talking about this whole journey that he has, I'd never trick readers or lie to them or otherwise be shady. That was never enough, though, to stop the journalism community's antibodies from hitting TechCrunch hard over all the conflicts of interest that were inherently a part of who I am. We fought through all that for years, and I kept fighting until my pen was removed from my hand, so to speak, by AOL. Once and for all, can you clarify for us what is the relationship between the Crunch Fund and TechCrunch and the Crunch Fund and AOL?
Well, AOL is an LP in the Crunch Fund, and I think that there's probably a lot more to the story, and I think Mike has done a remarkable job of standing on the sidelines and letting there be a gap in distance between Crunch Fund and what's happened at AOL and TechCrunch. I think he should tell that story. And I think you guys should have him on to tell that story when he decides he's ready to tell it.
We would love to, but is there a relationship between the Crunch Fund and TechCrunch?
There is no relationship.
Okay. Pat Gallagher of the Crunch Fund, thanks for joining us here.
Sure, thank you.
On Bloomberg West.